Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. My name is Sam Trumbore and I serve as the lead minister of this congregation. This has been a difficult few weeks with the shootings in Buffalo and in Uvalde. What should be a happy and joyful day today, with the Pride Parade at noon, which is why I'm dressed like this, and may the rain hold off. I hope that we can not have any rain. Unfortunately, today is tainted by the memory of the Pulse shootings 6 years ago today, June 12th, in Orlando, Florida, one of the worst mass shootings in American history. We cannot accept gun violence as a normal part of our lives. We must resist these sources until someday we can bring it to an end. In the meantime, we could do something to make a difference now. In Orlando 6 years ago, the entire community united in resilient compassion to denounce hate and fear and stand up for love, respect, and inclusivity. The outpouring of support directed to the LGBTQ plus community from across the world became embedded into their communities in the program called Acts of Love and Kindness, which was born. The Acts of Love and Kindness movement is 3 words: act, love, give. Do something to help others in the community. Spread love rather than hate, sharing your stories of why you acted, and donate to organizations that support LGBTQ community. Here in Albany, that might be the Pride Center, or in our own voices. There's a couple examples, and you'll see them in Washington Park at the Pride Festival. Our service today is about finding blessings in the unchosen suffering we endure. May we be that blessing through acting, love, and giving as we join together in the celebration of life. And our prelude this morning is Blackbird by Paul McCartney, and the musician is Elena Karpov.
Moment to arise.
And let us light our chalice. Erik's going to light it for us. And you'll find the words on your bottom of the screen that we can use to light the chalice. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. And we have a hymn to sing together, which is Morning Has Come. It's words and music by UU composer Jason Shelton, and our song leader again is Elena Karpov. I invite you to stand as you're willing and able.
This is called Gay and Depressed by Andrew Solomon. At a dinner in Atlanta, Georgia, I sat next to a slightly haggard British woman with an unlikely coif of gray ringlets, who, having learned about my work, asked, "So tell me then, which do you find more burdensome, being gay or being depressed?" I think I mustered a polite answer, even as I imagined telling my husband later that his conversation partner could not have been worse than mine. But that was some 15 years ago, before I began to question the line between identity and illness. Now I have to admit that being gay and being depressed do have a certain amount broadly in common, and a great deal in common in my life. Not because they are comparably burdensome, but because they have become my topics, both in my life and in my work. Not a day goes by that I don't have unsolicited correspondence from someone who is depressed and needs help, or from someone who is gay and suffering for it. Part of what my dinner companion would not have pursed is that in most conditions contain two loci of trauma, their inherent medical pain and their imposed social stigma. So being depressed is not a pleasant experience because it rages inside your head, taking away all access to pleasure and making you hate yourself. It is the very nature of the condition to feel miserable, drained of all vitality, convinced that your life is without value and will never have any value. Often you are suicidal. You could resolve all the stigma in the world and depression would still not be fun. However, it would be a bit more tolerable if we lived in a society that didn't blame depression on its victims, that didn't address it as a sign of moral turpitude, that didn't refuse jobs and housing to people with mental illness. The problem is medical, but there is much societal work to be done. That societal work is not predicated, however, on telling people to pull their socks up, which is a social solution to a medical problem. Being gay, on the other hand, is not inherently painful. For the moment, two people in a gay relationship cannot have children who manifest both of their genetic contribution. That's our biggest inherent problem. But the stigma around being gay is acute. Gay people lack legal protections of many kinds, are routinely excluded from social contexts, and suffer the brute ignorance of judgmental clerics. They're often cast out of their families. They are killed more and commit suicide more. The challenges to family making are narrowly medical, but the challenge of living a gay life is substantially social. The ex-American Vice President Mike Pence believes that gay people should be subjected to conversion therapies, effectively a medical solution to a social problem. I'd fix my depression by changing myself into somebody who no longer has it. I'd repair the difficulty of being gay by changing other people and their bigotry. Being depressed will always be burdensome. Though social change has alleviated some of its proximate shame, being gay could mostly stop being burdensome, and in fact has grown less so in my life. Though it seemed a heavy fate when I was younger, I'm grateful to the generations of activists who became before me and have made it easier to be open about depression and to form a family in my own style. Of course, I wonder whether I would become depressed if I hadn't been gay. But to imagine what my life would have been like if I hadn't been gay is to imagine another life entirely. The relentless cruelty of children unchecked by teachers predisposed me to psychic fragility. The slowness of my parents' accession to my sexual orientation broke my heart. I can't unpick those realities from the fabric of my mental illness. Surviving depression, on the other hand, gave me some of the resilience I needed to assert a gay identity and to find my way to marriage and children. And those revelatory intimacies have done more to mitigate my depression than any other circumstance. My 9-year-old daughter persistently confuses the words gay and happy, as in, did you know it's illegal to be happy in Libya? So far as I can tell, she does not know much about the word depressed, the one that people mistakenly, naively think as of the simple opposite of happiness. I won't disrupt her innocence for now. May she celebrate her father's gayness, but know nothing of depression. Happy Gay Pride. I saw my doctor this week. My doctor asked me, are you going to participate in any of the Gay Pride parade or any other parties? And I said, to be honest with you, I'm here, I'm queer, and I'm over it. But I do think the community has a lot to celebrate. According to Wikipedia, on October 11th, 1988, ACT UP had one of its most successful demonstrations, both in terms of size and in terms of national media coverage, when it successfully shut down the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, for a day. Media reported that it was the largest such demonstration since demonstrations against the Vietnam War. The AIDS activists shut down the large facility by blocking doors and walkways and a road as FDA workers reported to work. Police told some of the workers, go home, don't try to wade through the throng. Hey, FDA, how many people have you killed today? Chanted the crowd, estimated by protester organizers at being between 1,100 and 1,500. The protesters hoisted a black banner that read, Federal Death Administration. Police officers wearing surgical gloves and helmets started rounding up the hundreds of demonstrators and herding them into buses shortly after 8:30 a.m. Some protesters blocked the buses from leaving for more than 20 minutes. Authorities arrested at least 120 protesters that day, and demonstration leaders said that they were aiming for 300 arrests by the day's end. At this action, activists demonstrated their thorough knowledge of the FDA drug approval process. ACT UP presented precise demands for changes that would make actual experimental drugs available more quickly and more fairly. The success of seized control of the FDA can perhaps be measured by what ensued the following year. Government agencies dealing with AIDS, particularly the FDA and NIH, began to listen to us, to include us in decision-making, and even to ask for our input. Being gay in the USA is often intertwined with the AIDS crisis and a history of overcoming. We overcame a deadly virus and were instrumental in it becoming a manageable chronic condition, thus becoming one of the only few leading causes of death to be taken off the top 10 list in America. The LGBTQ2S+, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, Two-Spirit, and our allies community, helped end the exclusion of our community from the military, earn equal rights in the workplace, helped pass same-sex marriage, and continue to struggle for the equal rights for the transgender community. You might say that being a gay man has predestined me for a life of struggle. It has also allowed me joy, fulfillment, a clarity of purpose, and it led me to this very congregation of tremendously accepting and loving people. I wouldn't have it any other way.
That story, the struggle of living with chronic illness, of the mother, and hearing it from the son's perspective, and then to hear Erik's perspective, different ways of looking at the blessings of the challenges of chronic illness. I'm going to give you a third. Those of you who've had me over for a circle dinner will know the long list of dietary restrictions that I must follow. That list is hard-won knowledge for me. Every restriction has been discovered through a careful connecting process between what I eat and drink, and the amount and the location of and the type of intestinal pain that follows. It might happen right away, or it might happen that night, the next day, even 2 or 3 days later. It takes enormous eating discipline to eat primarily what I've discovered as safe foods and introduce new foods one at a time to develop a sense of what is safe and what isn't. And unfortunately, what is safe can change too, depending on other conditions such as the time of year, even the weather. I go to all this trouble because of the misery I experienced when I was a teenager. In junior high, I was very sick. I had a great deal of intestinal pain and diarrhea. I lost a lot of weight. I was hospitalized twice for testing. It's what they did back in the 1970s. Because they didn't have the medical imaging technology we do today, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me without doing exploratory surgery, which is opening you up, looking inside your belly to see what's going on. They diagnosed me with what they called regional enteritis, what today is called Crohn's disease. And I am very, very fortunate. I have never had any intestinal resections since then. Anti-inflammatory medications were helpful, the ones that were available at the time, but I still had ongoing severe intestinal pain and discomfort growing up. I thought of myself as disabled enough not to expect that I would have much of a life or a future after growing up. What changed the course of my life and my intestinal health was discovering some foods that made me ill. Milk, sugar, or lactose was the first that I discovered, along with some vegetables that I had strong reactions to that I didn't eat very often. One of the first was bamboo shoots. Gradually, by eliminating more and more foods, I discovered a new experience. I discovered what it felt like not to have intestinal pain. That felt so wonderful. It deepened my resolve to continue to work at eliminating all the foods I had problems with. Eliminating foods that don't digest well has been quite a journey, because some of those are not foods themselves, but spices. I have a very strong negative reaction to black pepper, for example. Who thinks twice about putting black pepper on your eggs for breakfast? Or I don't think I ever thought about it until I discovered this. Like, I used to have pastrami sandwiches. The longer the periods that I was free of intestinal pain, the better I felt, the clearer my mind, and the increased sensitivity to find other foods that were bothering me. I attribute my freedom from being disabled by Crohn's disease to this intense focus on attention to digestive health. Well, if you add in some of my other unfortunate events in my life of getting in a rock fight as I was in second grade and getting hit in the eye with a rock and losing some vision in that eye, and getting hit by a car when I was 20 and having my leg pretty badly broken, it took a long time for that to heal. I've had a lot of physical suffering in my life. That suffering, however, has been a great blessing for me serving as a minister. After all I've been through, it is easy for me to empathize with people's illnesses and their suffering. My heart opens to the process of dealing with chronic illness. I know how hard it can be to live with the imperfections of the body rather than just being able to fix them with the pills or surgery and move on. And I know it will come as no surprise to anyone here who has experienced the challenges of the aging process. Sooner or later, that will be you too. Few, if any of us, get out of living a long life without significant impairments of our sight, our hearing, our joints, our internal organs, our back. I could go on and on. You could probably give me a bunch of ones to talk about too. I wish for all of us the blessing of chronic illness that comes with living a long life. I wish for all of us the blessings of awareness and learning that comes from working with suffering. I wish for all of us the blessings of peace that comes with the reconciliation with and acceptance of the fragility of our bodies. And if you are young and dealing with the challenges of chronic illness, as the mother in the story was, may you see the blessing of getting a head start on these challenges. So be it. And I've got a responsive meditation for you this morning, because I think the 23rd Psalm is a really nice piece. But this is a different way that it's done as a responsive reading. So I think you'll find it kind of interesting challenge. But also kind of open up the 23rd Psalm with a different perspective on it. So if you could read, and when you see it up here, the italicized portions. So if you can put that up now. Should be the next slide, I hope. Uh-oh. You know, I wonder if it's not there. Well.
They're not in the deck, sorry.
Uh-oh. These things happen. But they are in the order of service. So if you could read along with me from the order of service, thank you. The Lord is my shepherd. That's relationship. I shall not want. That's rest. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. That's refreshment. He restores my soul. That's healing. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. That's guidance. For his name's sake. That's purpose. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. That's protection. For you are with me. That's faithfulness. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That's affirmation. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. That's hope. You anoint my head with oil. That's consecration. My cup runs over. That's abundance. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's blessing. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord. That's security forever. That's eternity. You can contemplate those words as we go to our silent meditation. This comes from some video that I took on our trip to New Zealand almost 3 years ago now, from the mud pits in the geyser.
An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on this next slide. If you are joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute. Or you can send a text to the numbers shown on the screen. The examples on the slide show how to label your text to indicate the amount and the purpose of your gift. We must now say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time or by visiting us at 405 Washington Avenue, Albany. You can find out more information at albanyuu.org. Our offertory music is Rooted and Grounded in Love, Amanda Udis Kessler, Musicians United Church of Christ Synod Virtual Choir. We enjoy welcoming guests and visitors to our service. If you'd like to tell us who you are and where you're from, those here in Community Hall should stand or raise your hand. The usher will bring you a microphone so that everyone can hear you. Those joining us on Zoom can either click on the raise hand symbol under the reactions button or on your Zoom toolbar. Our technician will invite you to unmute yourself and introduce yourself. You may also, or instead, click on the visitor link you'll now find in the chat window. Are there any online, Chris?
No one on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you and welcome to all who have joined us today. If you'd like to learn more about our congregation or Unitarian Universalism, you can stop by the table in the lobby and speak with our friendly welcome table host. Or if you're joining us on Zoom today, you can find in the participant window someone with the welcome before their name. You can reach out to that person privately in the chat window now or after the service.
I know I can. It's number 1015 in the green, the teal, take that back, the teal hymnal. Words are by Dennis Hamilton and music by Gene Gagne and arranged by Mark Fruitt. And the piano on this piece is Brian Kenny and vocals by Helena Hemingway and Mike Menifee. As we extinguish the chalice together, let us read the words that will appear on the screen. I hope. There they are. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I close with these words from a Celtic prayer. As the rain hides the stars, as the autumn mist hides the hills, as the clouds veil the blue of the sky, So the dark happenings of my lot hide the shining of your face from me. Yet, if I may hold your hand in the darkness, it is enough, since I know that even though I may stumble in my going, you will not fall. So be it. And let us have our thanks and announcements.
Our thanks today to musician Elena Karpov, ushers Don Odell, Sharon Babila, Kristen Abbas. Pastoral care associates today were Annie Lipinski and Donna Meixner. The service associate was Erik vonHausen. Welcomers Barb Manning, greeter Barb Metz. Coffee hour sponsored by the Green Sanctuary team with Chuck Manning. Office support Tammy Goddard and Patience Pichette. Technical support was Chris Jensen and Chuck Manning. The flowers are donated and arranged by Barb and Chuck Manning in celebration of summer, family, and friends.